Hello and welcome to this video on how to invoice Luminous and how to create timesheets. In the first part, we will show you two methods of invoicing on the Coupa supplier portal and one from the supplier actionable notifications email. In the last part of the video, we will also show you how you can create service timesheets on the CSP portal. First, we will talk about CSP invoicing, starting with the Create Invoice button. As the Luminous supplier who is linked to the Coupa supplier portal, you are able to log into your account and view your purchase order. Once logged in, click on Orders to see a table with your orders from Luminous. Some of the information listed here will include the PO number, the PO date, the items ordered, and the total of that order. You can then select the appropriate purchase order by clicking on the PO number. This shows you the purchase order details. For creating the invoice, open the PO and scroll to the bottom of the page. Here you'll see the Create Invoice button that you can use to flip the PO into an invoice. Click on Create Invoice, and now you will have to choose the relevant remit to address should you have multiple set up in the system. Should this be the first time creating an invoice in CSP, you will need to create a remit to address by following the steps in the new remit to pop-up. The Coupa supplier portal now opens an invoice template with all of the details from the purchase order. You need to add in a unique invoice reference in the invoice number field, but you also have the ability to make other changes so that you can alter the quantity of the invoice if you want to partially invoice an order, or make amendments to the line unit price if required. Assuming these do not need to be changed, you can add the appropriate tax rate by choosing the correct rate from the drop-down list under VAT rate. The units of measure are inherited from the PO and must not be changed. In case you need to enter additional costs to your invoice, you can use the Add Line button. But please remember to insert costs that were not stated in the PO. If needed, contact your requester from Luminous in advance, as it might require an update of the PO. Once the line items are completed, you will confirm the invoice gross total amount by clicking on the Calculate button. Now that this has been checked, you can click the Save as Draft button, save the invoice, and come back to it at a later point. This will not send the invoice to Luminous. Once you are pleased with the invoice, click the Submit button. Coupa will prompt you to confirm you wish to submit the invoice or whether you wish to continue editing the invoice. Click Send Invoice and the invoice will be electronically sent back to Luminous's Coupa instance instantaneously. You will then be shown the Invoices page on the Coupa supplier portal, where you will be able to see and monitor the status of your invoices. Another way in which Luminous supplier linked to the CSP is able to invoice is from the action icons in the Orders tab. Once logged in, you can click on the Orders to see a table with your orders from Luminous. You can then see the appropriate purchase order and click on the gold coins in the Actions column in order to create an invoice and proceed with the steps demonstrated. Lastly, a different way in which you can invoice Luminous is to use the supplier actionable notifications known as SUN. Once Luminous places an order, you will receive an email notification. In the email body, you will see a PO preview, and for actionable buttons, Create Invoice, Acknowledge PO, Add Comment, and Create Account. Click on Create Invoice in order to initiate the invoice creation. The invoice creation page will open. You will need to accept the terms and conditions by clicking on I accept. As soon as you accept, the Remit to pop-up will show on your screen. Click on Create Remit to and fill in all the required fields marked with an asterisk. Once done, click on Create and Use in order to create your address and continue towards invoicing. You need to add in a unique invoice reference in the invoice number field. But you can also make other changes, such as altering the quantity of the invoice if you want to partially invoice an order, or make amendments to the line unit price if required. Assuming these do not need to be changed, you can add the appropriate tax rate by choosing the correct rate from the drop-down list under VAT rate. Once the tax rate has been selected, you can confirm the invoice gross total amount by clicking the Calculate button. You can then save as draft to save the invoice and come back to it at a later point, as this will not send the invoice to Luminous, or once you are pleased with the invoice, click the Submit button. Coupa will prompt you to confirm if you wish to submit the invoice or whether you wish to continue editing the invoice. Click Send Invoice and the invoice will be electronically sent back to Luminous's Coupa instance instantaneously. You will then be shown the Invoices table where you will be able to see and monitor the status of your invoices. Independent of the method you choose to create the invoice, Luminous will normally need to validate that the delivery of the goods was performed and first create the goods receipt in their Coupa platform before continuing with the approval process of the invoice. You also have the possibility to check this information on your end in your CSP account by entering the invoice and by looking at the Review Reasons section on the right side. If the status mentioned in this section is not received, it means that the goods receipt is still to be created. Let's go back to the CSP Orders page so that you can see how to create a service timesheet. When you receive a service PO, you can flip it into a service timesheet by clicking on the Create Service Timesheets button in the Actions column of the Purchase Orders table, or you can enter the PO and click on the Create Service Timesheets button at the bottom of the page. Enter the time, quantity, or amount against the PO line items, but please remember that you can only enter 1 week at a time. The week applies to all the lines. Click on the blue arrows to navigate between the weeks. And also use the Attachments section to add any document that must be shared with Luminous. Once ready, save or submit the timesheet for approval. The service timesheet is routed for approval to Luminous, and you can then check the status of the submitted timesheet in the Service Timesheets tab. And here you have the status column that you can check. Make sure you have the notification preferences set up for timesheets as well, in order to receive on-time updates from your customer. Remember that an accurate delivery of service timesheets and invoices via the CSP will enable and benefit a smooth operational process. If you have any questions, please contact the Luminous Coupa support at esupplier@luminous.be.